I don't know what you mean by go easy. They would be documenting compliances, and I will acknowledge that a lot was done by Real Water, including Mr. Jones going through HACCP training.
And we'll get to that. Well, you know what, you brought it up, let's talk about that.
Brought to the jury. Please be seated.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your service and patience. Our plans ready to continue? Yes, sir. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen. All right, back to the machine. Dr. Hutt, can you explain again what this is?
This is a gas chromatograph mass spectroscopy machine. GCMS is the acronym.
And how long have these been available, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, ever since I was a graduate student, I used to use a gas chromatograph in my own doctoral research, as well as my master's research. And more recently, they have combined the two machines. They used to be separate in my personal experience, but now the great capabilities you can do them simultaneously for screening a wide variety of compounds, including volatiles.
Okay, so these have been around since the 80s, 90s.
Yes.
Okay, and are there a lot of these around?
Yes, they're very common to be used within industry and within analytical laboratories.
Okay, and did you have occasion to use these when you were at McDonald's and the other places?
I did not personally use them. When I was at McDonald's, for example, my role in leadership within quality and food safety simply dictated that the test would be done. In the laboratories, I often had a role in selecting who would be doing the work.
Okay, that's a bad question. Did McDonald's use these type of machines to test their products?
McDonald's required their suppliers to use these machines as well as did some testing on our own, yes.
And the same for Yummy Brands?
Young brands, yes.
Young
Also,
brands.
yes, again, the brands did not do a lot of testing on our own, but we did require routinely our suppliers to do these tests.
Okay. And Heinz too?
Absolutely, yes. Even more so with Heinz because we were responsible for the products on the marketplace.
And have you seen any suggestion, evidence, indication anywhere that Real Water ever wants to use this type of machine?
I have not, even though there is a regulatory requirement for bottled water that there be an annual test for environmental contaminants, which this machine would test for.
Okay. And do you have a view as to whether or not when you're bringing out a new product, a new water product, they should use this machine to do a test?
Well, two things, yes. As I mentioned, it is a regulatory requirement that there be an annual test for contaminants, environmental contaminants, but then also in just screening a product that has a very complicated chemistry process involved in its manufacture, which is real water. I mean, you're adding and deleting electrons from water to change the pH of natural water. It's a chemical process, a very complicated one. And it's elemental chemistry, so you have lots of things that can go wrong, and it is an opportunity to really find them before they become problems by using such screening technology as GCMS.
And this is the kind of machine the FDA used on the hydrogen.
My understanding is yes, and the FDA has a variety of different machines, but I believe GCMS is a very common one. Again, it's used primarily for screening for unknown compounds.
Okay, and when we started with this is we were talking about 2 customer complaints.
Yes, in 2014.
Okay, Shane, can I have the first one up, please, which is Exhibit 27?
Your Honor, is it 27 admitted?
I thought it was admitted, but it isn't.
I showed 26 of admitted.
Okay, let's go to 26 then.
I have, yeah, 26.
Okay, 26. Is this one of the complaints that Real Water got that you looked at?
Yes.
What is significant about this to you?
Well, it's describing a bottle that was purchased that has a strong chemical smell. And I believe this is Real Water's description of total dissolved solids reading of 26. They went through and purchased other bottles from the same area, from the same manufacturing, all of which tested around 19 total dissolved solids and smelled fine. They concluded, this is again Real Water's conclusion, that the customer complaint was legitimate or not, this issue is considered closed. So it is a very cursory summation of a consumer complaint, a strong chemical smell that was, in my opinion, dismissed without investigation.
Okay, is having someone go out in the field and do a sniff test, is that adequate?
No, and the test for total dissolved solids would also not be adequate, because that would be measuring your level of electrolytes, which would not be giving you a chemical smell. Something else would be giving you a chemical smell.
Okay. And with regards to the other complaints, you've looked at that,
Yes,
and that was similar to this?
yes, and my recollection, again, not based on the summary from Grow Water, but the identification of the manufacturing lot was the same for the two products that were found with complaints from customers.
Okay, and instead of just smelling it, what should they have done?
They should have used a GC-MS analysis, which tests for volatiles, unknown volatiles, and it would have been very simple to find out what was giving the chemical smell. The description of a chemical smell is a signal that you've got something going on in the product that shouldn't be there. Your job is to find out what it is, particularly when you have two lots with the same smell and the same manufacturing lot.
With regards to how much it costs to have one of these tests, are we talking $1,500?
Injection, light foundation, separation,
How much money does it cost to run a GC?
skin injection.
These tests are not expensive at this point. I couldn't give you a number per se, but it's probably under 200, yes. And it actually might be far less than that, because again, it's a screening tool.
Okay, and you've looked at the other customer complaints in this case,
I've looked at several customer complaints, yes.
and the jury's already heard about, they heard the testimony of Ms. Doran, looked at her deposition,
Yes,
and Ms. Kessler, the jury's already heard from her, we looked at that,
yes,
and the airline pilot, Mr. Fisher, the jury's already heard of him on Friday,
yes,
we looked at that. Okay. And you've also looked at emails we had long got, correct?
yes.
Just Shane, can I have Watkins' email up?
One more time, Mr. Kemp?
Watkins' email?
What number is that?
Do we know what it's,
Eric, you got that?
Is that 41? That's
Yes, 41.
oh,
You know, we think Mr. Watkins is going to be here Thursday, I think.
and this has been
Yes.
created, so, okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, Miss Dr. Hutt, have you taken a look at this email before?
I've seen it before. I would like to just
Go ahead.
review my memory. Can we see the entire on the screen?
Yeah, go. Give me the date, yeah, right.
2018. Okay.
Go ahead, Shane, scroll down with it. Okay, yeah, Shane, let's go to the key part. Down. Very good. Okay. And Dr. Hutch, you've seen this email before?
Yes,
If a company is informed by email from a customer that someone has been in the hospital for 2 weeks, and the doctor thinks there's some connection with alkaline water, what, if anything, should that company do?
well, it should launch an investigation of some nature and some scope. Again, at this point, there were multiple other complaints of individuals becoming sick, drinking alkaline water, and this should have triggered a serious investigation.
injection, light foundation.
Come approach.
excluding all the other complaints. The other ones we talked about, the chemical, Kessler, Dorn, Fisher, excluding all those other complaints. If they've just gotten this, what do you think they should do?
Well, it should be a trigger for an investigation. In isolation, complete and total isolation, they should have been sensitive to other complaints of individuals who have been hospitalized or have similar symptoms that have been described here. Again, in total isolation, that's not the case because this was not in isolation and similar symptoms and descriptions had been made of people getting sick.
Okay, let's just keep it isolated.
Okay.
In total isolation, is someone who's been in the hospital for 2 weeks that's using your product, is that important?
It's very important. Customers do complain about things that are not the company's responsibility, so it needs to be put in that context. That's why I keep going back and saying the context of this email is very, very important in my mind. But having said that, even within isolation, somebody telling you that an individual consumed your product and became hospitalized requires a lot of attention and follow-up.
Now, we talked about NSF, which is the audit company for Costco, correct?
It is, yes.
And again, would you explain to the jury how these audit companies work in the grand scheme of things?
Yes, the audit business has evolved greatly over the past 20, 30 years, 25 years or so, and it has improved greatly such that fewer audits are required of a manufacturer. And the reason that's good news is, number one, the quality of the audits are better, and number two, the costs for the manufacturer are down because they get one audit and then it's accepted by multiple customers. So in this case, Costco requires of each one of their suppliers an audit, which is recognized through a global scheme called the Global Food Safety Initiative, GFSI. GFSI is an umbrella organization, truly global, and they establish standards, consistent standards. NSF executes a standard consistent with the Global Food Safety Initiative. So, Costco requiring NSF to do an audit of Real Water means Real Water could use that same audit for multiple other customers if they wanted to. They have that ability. It's one audit accepted everywhere, is a mantra of the Global Food Safety Initiative. So again, improve the quality of the audits that are done, the consistency that they are done, as well as decrease the cost to the manufacturer. All good news. So in this case, Costco required a bottled water compliance audit done by NSF. NSF is an organization that's been there for 45 years or 50 years, whatever, in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm very familiar with them. They're a good organization, and they do consistently a very good audit. And they excel in equipment, certification, and bottled water. So those are the two areas of true expertise. So I'm not surprised that Costco would ask Real Water to have an audit done by NSF.
And when they do this audit, some person actually goes to the plant?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's at least a few hours long, depending on the size and the scope of the audit. Real Water's facility was not huge in the sense that they have 62 manufacturing lines and all that, like a Heinz plant might be. So an audit in a Heinz plant might be 5 days for such an audit. I think this audit for NSF was probably all done within a day, full day, but a day for the Real Water facility.
Okay. And is there an audit report?
Yes, they generate an audit report. It's done consistently according to a standard. Again, in this case, the standard is based on FDA's bottled water regulations, which are described in 21 Code of Federal Regulations. And so the elements of the NSF audit report, their checklist for the audit, as well as the audit report, come in a standard format.
And have you looked at the audit reports that NSF did for Costco and water facility?
Yes,
And you looked at the March 2017 report,
yes,
the December 2018 report?
yes.
And in general, was there anything troubling in those reports?
Multiple things were troubling in those reports. Actually, it looked like significant deficiencies in regulatory compliance started to occur in 2015. The earliest report that I saw was in 2014. In 2015, they started to seem to have very large deficiencies in requirements specifically for HACCP, in terms of HACCP planning, people accountable for HACCP, the food safety plan not being complete for even existing or simply being incomplete. Multiple deficiencies I'd be happy to speak to specifically.
Do these NSF audits have a specific section on HACCP?
Yes, they do. There's seven different elements. Quality is one, HACCP is another, sanitation, employee practices, food defense, which is part of the FSMA requirements, storage, ingredients, and grounds and facility are the seven elements.
And Shane, can I have the HACCP section from the 2018 report, which is Exhibit T09?
This is 2018.
Yeah, that's the 19. I'm in 18.
Do you mind if I step down there to
Sure,
see
sure.
that?
I think,
I can trust my-
Shane, let's go to question number 1 in this section from the previous page. Okay, Doctor?
Yes.
Don't push it.
Thank you.
Okay, so these are the standard HACCP questions, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so question number 1, what's that about?
Again, it's HACCP preliminary. Is there a HACCP team identified? Is there a current list for all the members that's also identified? Does the team meet at least annually, and are there minutes of the meeting? These are all requirements for a HACCP team according to FDA's regulations. And the auditor's comment is the HACCP team list is not current. There are 4 member positions listed, where 3 of them are currently handled by one person, who is the Vice President of Operations, Executive Vice President, which is Blaine Jones. So he's currently filling 3 of 4 positions listed himself.
Okay.
Next question?
What about question number 2?
2. So then the second question is, has the person responsible for the HACCP program completed formal HACCP training? And the auditor's response is there is no current staff that has completed formal HACCP training. And this includes Blaine Jones, who just assumed 3 of the positions on the 4-person team. So he has not been trained.
So on the point section, they got 0 points out of 20 on the first one and 0 out of 10 on the second one. Am I reading that right?
That is correct.
Okay, and they got 10 out of 10 on the third one. What does that mean?
Is the scope of the HACCP plan identified? And the scope would mean the extent of what the HACCP plan pertains to. Pertains in this case to bottled water, manufactured with real water facility. Yes, that was described, so they got 10 points out of 10.
Okay, and the next one's a description of each product.
Including intended use and list of ingredients and materials used for the production. And again, this is a requirement as part of the hazard analysis. It was not available for the audit, meaning they were asked to produce it, they couldn't produce it, meaning it doesn't exist.
Okay, the next one.
Is there an up-to-date process flow diagram that is specific to the facility? Again, a requirement for the HACCP food safety plan. They have to start with a process flow diagram that identifies every ingredient as well as every step in the manufacturing process, and it has to be complete. And the auditor's response was the process flow chart is not up to date and does not reflect all the process steps and does not include all the inputs such as ingredients added. Again, these are minimal inputs. This is not a complicated food safety plan, should not be a complicated food safety plan. They got 0 points out of 20, 20 being significant because this is a big piece of the food safety plan. Your hazard analysis, including that process flow diagram, has to be complete. Because the whole idea is you know what ingredients you're using, you know what you're doing, you're planning for all the food safety risks that could occur, and you're preventing them from occurring. So if you don't have that fundamental upfront process flow diagram with all the ingredients identified, you don't have it. You're not aware of what you're doing.
And you heard Mr. Randolph's testimony that there was a secret concentrate room that only Mr. Jones could go into.
Yes.
Could you ever get a good score on 4 and 5 if that was the case?
No. And if they tried to hide that there was something going on, and I understand this is called Suite 145.
Objection, speculation.
No,
There's no speculation that answer, really.
the common approach. So you could rephrase the question.
Okay, let's not use hide, but you understand they weren't letting the auditors in the concentrate room.
My understanding based on the audit results from NSF and also the South Nevada Health Department, that suite 145 is not identified in the process flow diagram, which is in concentrate production.
And assuming they didn't let the auditors in there and they did identify it, could you get good grades in 4 and 5?
No.
Okay, all right, 6.
6, is the process flow diagram verified by an on-site audit? Are these signed and dated by the team leader, which is a HACCP team leader, after any changes or at least annually? The issue here is no, because there is no, the process flow diagram is not complete. It was not up to date. It was not verified with the on-site audit, which would be by the auditor. And then the other requirement, which is implied here, or stated here, is that the team leader, the HACCP team leader, has to review, I should say the team, has to review the HACCP food safety plan every year, and if any changes occur, any new equipment, any new ingredients, any new supplier comes in, it must be reviewed and verified that it is still accurate and correct and appropriate. And that was not done in this case.
Shane, let's go to 7 through 12, please. What's that about?
Has a hazard analysis, and again, that's a fundamental step in the 7 steps of HACCP, of all biological, chemical, and radiological and physical hazards. And those are the requirements, again, of HACCP, that you look for biological, which are microbiological, chemical, which are toxins, or any other things, radiological, obviously, and physical hazards, which can be foreign objects. You have to identify that those could be hazards, and then I understand if they can be reasonably expected to occur at each of the manufacturing steps. And the question here is, has that hazard analysis been completed, and are the control measures for the hazards established? The answer is no. 0 points out of 20, because this is a huge element. This is a hazard analysis. Again, the first step of HACCP 7-step plan is a hazard analysis for biological, chemical, radiological, and physical hazards. Hasn't been done, was not done in this case.
Okay. Let's just get to the end, Shane. I don't know we need to go through all of them. So what's the total score here?
10 out of 150, which is 6.7%.
Is that a good HACCP score?
No, sir, that is not a good hazard.
Have I seen a lower one?
No, I have not.
Would this be concerning?
This is a huge concern. It just simply means to me that there is no respect for the need, the regulatory requirement that there be a HACCP program, and they've made no intent whatsoever to comply. Thank you.
Now, this auditor was named Will Kemp. Do you remember that?
Yes,
And after getting this audit, did Real Water complain about Will Kemp?
yes, I understand you did.
And they basically asked NSF to send a new auditor out, correct?
Yes, to put that in context, if the audit receives a failing grade, as they did in this particular case, then they must be re-audited within 3 months. And so the re-audit, Real Water requested a different auditor, specifically requested a different auditor for the re-audit.
So it's like if you're in school and you pick your favorite professor to give you a grade every time.
If you didn't like your grade, you pick somebody else, yeah.
And was that an appropriate thing for someone being audited to do, to get rid of the auditors they didn't like and get favorable auditors?
It is not appropriate. The question you may ask is it done? The answer is not by anyone who is reputable and who's credible and respects their relationship with their customers. Because this is a very transparent thing to a customer who's paying attention and looks at the auditors. That's not to say that auditors repeatedly audit the same facility, because that's not the case either. But to get a completely different score in such a small period of time, a short period of time, begs the question, something happened.
Is it possible that all these things could have been fixed in that 3-month period, really fixed?
I don't believe you could have gone from a 6.7% compliance to a HACCP set of standards to 100% without, in that time period, no, not in my experience.
Okay, let's go back to the customer complaints. We looked at a couple of them. We talked about the depositions. We looked at the email. Let's jump forward to October 2020. Is it your understanding that Real Water had a series of customer complaints at that time?
Yes,
Okay, and Shane, can I have the picture for the question and answers, October 15th picture? October 15th question and answer. Okay, and this is the answer that the Real Water wrote out for the FDA, correct?
yes, just refreshing my memory here.
Now,
So what is it?
47.
47.
Okay.
This one's a bit, let's make sure.
So, let's assume that everything was perfect up to this point in time. What should they have done to get all of this flood of customer complaints? What should they have done, first of all, in terms of testing?
They should have launched an internal investigation as to what is going on. Again, I'm reading this just to refresh my memory, that through the month-long period of October 15th to November 15th, 2020, 25 to 30 calls regarding odd-tasting water from 12 to 15 of those customers who then subsequently canceled their delivery. Again, for 2 customers to complain about odd-tasting water, should have launched an investigation. This is just an enormous number of complaints about the same issue, which should have launched a serious and in-depth root cause analysis investigation.
And by root cause analysis, you're talking about the GCMS machine?
It would use the GCMS machine to identify unknowns, but you're basically looking for something you don't know what it is. And so you're going to use tools available to you that could be done, again, locally through an analytical testing organization. There's also national ones that have been used by Costco, for example, that could have been employed. Again, full scale, all out, all hands on deck. This should have been a huge investigation at this time.
Okay, and you heard Mr. Randolph's testimony about Blaine Jones,
Yes,
Vice President of Operations, being hospitalized on October 5th. You heard that?
yes.
How does that fit in this picture in your view?
Well, again, more evidence that Real Water knew that people were getting sick from consuming their water, and nothing was being done. Again, this should have launched a full-scale investigation and a recall. This product should not have been on the market, available for customers to buy, with this number of complaints of unknown origin, but the same type of etiology, the same type of symptoms, same type of complaints. Again, something was off. It was clear that it was making people sick. Mr. Randolph indicated that he had family and friends that were becoming sick. Mr. Jones himself became sick. Again, these are just, it's all pointing to the same problem. It's the water, it's making people sick, and they did not do anything about it.
Okay. Do you think that Real Water acted properly in not doing testing in October or doing a recall in October when based on this information?
No, they did not act properly. They should have done testing, which would have led to a recall.
Thank you, Dr. Ed.
Any cross?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thinking about putting up the table, but on Mr. Parker's table, he qualified for that, so I'm going to read what it is. Good afternoon, Dr. Adams-Hutt. How are you?
Good afternoon.
My name is Joel Odou. I represent Real Water. We've spoken before. I want to talk to you, let's see, where should we start? I want to ask you a few questions about your life experiences. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. One of your life experiences is you worked for Campbell Soup, is that right?
I was, yes, I did.
And what did you do for Campbell?
I was, recall the title was Director of Quality Systems, and I worked on what we internally called Next Generation Quality Systems, which included food safety systems, installing an internal program based on ISO 9000 and 100 plants globally.
How many, I'm sorry?
100,
100 plans?
yes.
I'm sorry, you probably remember from last time, I'm really hard of hearing,
I'll
I'll do my
speak up.
best, apologize. Young Brands, when did you work for Young Brands?
I worked for Young Brands between
Approximately is fine.
1997 to 1999, I
The
believe.
90s, late 90s.
Late 90s, yes.
Okay. And Young Brands at that time, they owned Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yes. I believe that was before they acquired A&W and then subsequently dropped A&W.
I'd like to know why they dropped A&W, I'll ask another time. And then you worked for Heinz after that?
I worked for Heinz after that, yes.
And again, large company, Heinz.
Yes, I worked for Young Brands earlier than that, because I know I joined Heinz in 1997, I believe. I don't remember.
Large companies have a lot of employees,
They do,
and just in general, if it's a smaller company, employees may wear several hats. Do you agree with that?
no, I don't, when it comes to roles and responsibilities for quality and food safety. I'm familiar with several smaller companies as well, and work with them through the National Restaurant Association, for example, and all have dedicated and accountable staff for food safety and for quality management.
Okay, so you're critical of a small company if they have somebody that does multiple things for that company?
No,
Or does it depend on what those things are?
it depends on what they are and the knowledge and training that the individuals have. For example, I'll just share a notion, two parents can have a child, but somebody's accountable for picking up that child at school and knows it and is going to be there for that child. But if they don't know it and it's a shared responsibility, then maybe nobody picks up the child. The issue is, it's okay to share responsibility, but people have to be trained for it and aware and knowledgeable that they are accountable for it.
So your criticism is that people don't know that they're responsible?
In general, my criticism would be if they don't know that they're responsible, then that's a problem of leadership. Secondly, in this case, Roll Water, there's evidence that people did not know that they were accountable, or they were told they were accountable for food safety and quality, but had no training or preparation for it.
I don't think you're answering my question. You kind of changed the subject on me. I was asking about the accountability of two parents to pick up a child. You would agree with me that a child needs to be picked up for school, and it doesn't matter who said they would do it. One of the parents has to do it, and if nobody shows up, it's both of their faults, isn't it?
I wouldn't say that, I think
No,
it's a,
Oh, hold on.
I'm sorry.
What?
I was surprised. I apologize. I interrupted.
Okay, hold on. I believe she was in the process of answering your question, so just wait for her to answer.
Please.
Thank you.
Sorry.
my point simply is, somebody has to be accountable and know that they are accountable. And it's a communication issue between two parents. So somebody, you say, somebody has to be there to pick up the child, yes, but it's because they know that they're accountable and the person is knowledgeable and is on time and there to pick up the child. If they don't know it, then they can't necessarily confirm that they'll be there.
So it's a mystery that the child goes to school and somebody has to pick them up. I'm talking about the parent that loves it. Right, if one of them makes a mistake, but isn't the other one also responsible?
No, it's a matter of accountability, in my opinion, that somebody knows that they're accountable, and if there's a failure of communication, then that's the parent's problem together. But the issue is, as a leadership and a family, somebody needs to say, you're going to be responsible for picking up the child. You are prepared, you have the resources to do it, and you're gonna go do it, and the person does it. And that's accountability.
Okay. Seems a little old fashioned to me. I mean, it seems like either parent can pick up the child, and sometimes one parent has something they have to do and the other parent doesn't. And you share the responsibility, but that's okay, you can disagree.
If I can elaborate then, because
Well,
you're,
he didn't ask me a question, so. Ask me a question.
Thank you. So, let's talk about some of the complaints that you were critical of the investigation. Could we see plaintiff's exhibit 26, please? So, as I understand it, Dr. Adams-Hutt, you're critical of the investigation that Real Water did in response to this complaint, is that correct?
Yes, this is a written summary of what they did. I don't know if they did anything else, but this is what they wrote, and I am critical of the scope of their investigation and their findings, yes.
And in this particular instance, they sent an employee to the gas station, and they picked up some of the bottles, and they tested them, correct so far?
They don't describe how many they picked up. If it were a random sample,
That wasn't my question, then.
well, you asked me to describe what I'm reading
I
here.
didn't. I asked you if that was correct so far.
No,
It's
I'm
not correct.
clarifying. I'm the
So why
person.
don't you repeat the question, sir?
Okay. We agree that they sent an employee or employees to sort of purchase some bottles, correct?
That's what they say. They sent,
Do you have any reason to believe it's not correct?
I have no knowledge based on the scope of this summary, whether they sent one or more people or what they purchased.
Okay. But somebody went and purchased some bottles, correct?
They describe it as we. I don't know if that's a plural we or a corporate we.
Okay. And it was in the area with the same manufacturer. I'm having trouble seeing that. So that says, I'm sorry, area? Yeah, I think that's area. You see that?
Well, it says Chevron on Spencer Road, Sant Rose, manufactured, I can't read this, 0417 14-2. 14-2 is.
So you don't know what the 14-2 is, whether that's a shift or something like that?
I don't know what it is, no.
Okay, fair enough. I was looking further down the page. I was so focused on that sentence that we don't agree on. We went and purchased several other bottles from the gas station. And then the next part says, in that area with the same manufacturer. You see that?
Yes,
And then it says, all of which tested around 19 TDS. So far, so good.
I don't know what it means because I don't know what the same manufacturer
So did he
means.
read it correctly?
Yes,
Okay. And smell fine. Did I read that correctly?
yes,
And your criticism is that they gave it the smell test. Is that correct?
it described that they gave it a smell test, and they also tested total dissolved solids.
And you're critical of those two tests because that was, in your view, all that was done. Is that correct?
I'm critical of the fact that they were preliminary tests, they were olfactory tests. I don't know if they simply smelled it, but it says here they smelled it. So if you open up the bottle, you smell it. You're not doing any testing to actually understand what this, if there is a smell there, but you're just simply smelling it.
So what I said was correct.
Well, you read it correctly. They
Yeah.
tested it using total dissolved solids test, which gave an inconsistent reading. And it smelled fine.
And you're critical that if these were the only two things that they did, that was insufficient.
Yes, based on the context also that there was another complaint, similar nature in 2014.
Okay. All right, hold on to that thought, we'll come back to it. One of the complaints, you listed off 4 areas that were critical of Real Water. One of those areas was deficient standard operating procedures. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes,
Now, you're aware that Real Water had standard operating procedures, are you not?
I'm unaware as to the scope because I know it was identified as a deficiency in the 2017 and 2018 NSF reports, their
Okay.
audits.
Your Honor, we'd like to offer up into evidence Real Water Exhibit 2020. It is a standard operating procedure.
The exhibit is 20, the exhibit is what number?
2020.
20. Oh.
I assume he's representing that he's gonna lay a foundation later,
Yeah. It's
through another witness.
well, you can.
There's another witness.
Yeah, come on.
Foundation, I wouldn't.
Okay, you can set it up.
Mr. Zamora, can you display Exhibit 2020 for us, please? All right, Dr. Adams-Hutt, can you see what this document is entitled?
Yes,
And you see at the top where it says document type, standard operating procedures.
it's singular, standard operating procedure, yes.
You are very good at grammar, I apologize. Title, water testing, internal finished goods, you see that?
Yes,
And you see the purpose of the standard operating procedure under item number 1.
yes,
And you see under item number 2, there's a scope. Item number 3, responsibility. Item number 4, there's no definitions. Item number 5, policy. You see all that, right?
yes,
And you see that these are standard operating procedures for the finished real water product, right?
to be specific, this is a standard operating procedure for internal testing for the real water product specific to these tests, issued in 2014.
Okay. Dr. Adams, you're aware that there are standard operating procedures in 2015 and 2016?
I am not, because I haven't seen them, and there are results of audits that indicate that they are deficient.
So you believe that the NSF audit, when it found that there were deficiencies in standard operating procedures, meant that there were no procedures?
No, but they were essential procedures that were missing. In the case of this particular procedure about internal testing, there were findings that referred to internal testing not being completed, specifically in 2017 and 2018, and I'd have to go back to the audits in 2016 and 2015 to review them as well. But they were audit findings that there were standard operating procedures that were not complete, that were not found, and that internal testing was being done or done incorrectly.
So you believe that if you look at a 2016 audit, and it said that they got points for standard operating procedures. And there was no demerits, if you will, or whatever I don't know, what do they call it when you don't measure up? Is it demerits or?
Findings.
Findings, okay, so if you believe that there were no negative findings for standard operating procedures in an NSF audit in 2016, then there would be such procedures.
Well, first of all, I need to put this in context. You identify one standard operating procedure. As part of a quality program, there are multiple standard operating procedures, each individually identified in the format with the responsibility and the sign-off as in the format that you just showed me. So that's consistent with my understanding of what they should have. But it's one thing to have it, it's another thing to execute it consistently as expected also.
Okay. And you talked extensively with Mr. Kemp about the failed audit, which was in December of 2018, is that right?
Well, I would identify the audit in 2017 also to have many failures, as well as 2015 having many failures as well.
Okay.
Yes, they had failures throughout. There were findings that were serious findings in all of those audits.
Okay. So, So let's pull up plaintiff's exhibit 209. And let's go to the top. So I have some questions about this in general. First off, NSF. That's a, what did you call them? I think you said they were a good company, something like that.
It's a standard auditing company. It's called the National Sanitation Foundation, based in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
And they're a good company.
I've known them for 4 decades. I've been to their facility. I've worked with them in designing gold standard audits for the industry.
So they're the gold standard.
No, they're not. They are a player amongst gold standards, and they were participants in a time in the early 2000s when we were developing gold standard audits for the industry.
Okay, and this audit that we were talking about is 6 December 2018, right?
Yes,
And the auditor is Layla Said, right?
correct.
And you have no reason to believe that Ms. Said is incompetent.
I have no reason to believe that, no.
And this audit in 2018 was at the behest of Costco, is that right?
My understanding, yes.
Okay. And if we go back to the top, thank you, Mark, we see the facility's contact, Amy Jones, who's that?
That is the owner's wife, as I understand, and she had roles from various times within the manufacturing facility and was identified as the contact on several projects.
Okay, and you reviewed her deposition?
Yes,
Okay, and then who's Blaine Jones?
Blaine Jones is her son.
You believe they're blood related?
They have the same last name. I've never understood them not to be blood related.
They are not related. Blaine Jones is from Brent Jones' first marriage.
Information I didn't have before.
You didn't see that in Amy Jones's deposition then?
I don't recall.
Okay.
It didn't relate to food safety.
Now, you're aware that this audit that happened on 6 December 2018 happened at about, what, 9 in the morning?
It's,
8:55
it
a.m. is
records,
when it started?
it records that it began at 8:55 a.m., yes?
Okay. And you're aware that Blaine Jones received an email about 6 a.m. that morning where the HACCP trained person quit?
I don't recall that. But again, that's not something that would be startling to me because there shouldn't be only one HACCP trained person in the facility.
So you're not surprised that this person quit, or you had no information this person quit?
I recall that someone quit around this time period. Again, the person responsible for the HACCP program quitting at 6 o'clock in the morning is not going to affect the content of the program at 8:55 a.m. that same day. The content will be the same. The deficiencies in this audit were found in the content, not simply the presence or lack thereof of someone trained in HACCP.
Okay. And then you had said that a re-audit has to happen within 3 months after a failing audit, right?
I believe it's 3 months. It's a period of time. It might be 6 months, but my recollection is it's 3.
All right, let's pull up Exhibit 211. This is about 3 months later, right? This is 21 February 2019.
Yes,
And this auditor is Jason Ashida.
correct.
And you don't have any criticism of Mr. Ashida, do you?
I have no knowledge of Mr. Ishida.
Mr. Ashida, sorry I interrupted you.
You're saying it's a she?
No,
I'll
it's a
take the last name,
Oh.
Sheila.
Ashida.
Sorry.
And I may be butchering the pronunciation. People do that to me all the time, so I apologize in advance to Mr. Ashida. Now, you had indicated there was something nefarious about Mr. Ashida doing the re-audit.
My understanding from an email, I believe it was from Ms. Jones, that a different auditor was requested specifically, which is not done. This is not what quality professionals do. We don't request different auditors because we had a bad audit.
So do you think that Jason went easy on them?
I have no idea.
Do you have any reason to believe that Jason wouldn't do his job as an employee of NSF International?
The audits are hired, and the company doing the audits are hired by the customer, in this case, Real Water. So Real Water is paying for this audit, as well as for the re-audit.
But Jason works for NSF, doesn't he?
Yes. And Real Water is paying NSF for the audit.
They are paying him. That's a requirement by Costco, isn't it?
It's a requirement by every manufacturer. Yes, they require a customer.
I don't know about every manufacturer, but I know that Costco required Real Water to pay that. You recall seeing that in the documents, don't you?
Yes, and McDonald's requires it of their suppliers, and Heinz did also, I remember, so yes.
And so that's fairly customary in the industry that the person that requests the audit would have the person providing the product pay for the audit.
Yes, but not to request a specific auditor or a different auditor. That is unusual.
Do people always get along?
My experience with auditors is that you are very polite and generous with your time and make other people available and find documents for auditors when they ask, because you want a successful audit.
That's my experience too. It's not my question. People always get along.
I don't know what you mean.
Generally speaking?
No.
I don't know how to answer that question, sir.
Okay, you've never had a situation where you don't get along with a coworker?
I've always found a way to work through.
Good for you. All right, so we have no reason to doubt that Jason Ishida would have gone easy on Real Water in the real audit, do we?
I don't know what you mean by go easy. They would be documenting compliances, and I will acknowledge that a lot was done by Real Water, including Mr. Jones going through HACCP training.
And we'll get to that. Well, you know what, you brought it up, let's talk about that. Who provided Mr. Blaine Jones his HACCP training?
I know, I've seen reference to it, but I don't recall. There are many different providers of HACCP training which are certified. It is a certified program recognized through the FDA.
And forget who gave it to him. What is HACCP training? How long does it take to do?
There's different levels of HACCP training required that range from a few hours to a few days.
Okay. The training that Blaine Jones did, what level was that?
I don't recall specifically. I believe it was at least a 1 to 2 or 3 day program.
Okay. And are you sure it was a 3-day program?
No, I don't recall specifically, as I said.
You believe that Blaine Jones was adequately trained for HACCP, don't you?
I don't know what that means. I know that he went through the program. He went through the required program. I don't know how to define adequately trained, since he had chosen not to be trained previously, for whatever reason.
Is the program pass-fail?
It is a certification program. You complete the requirements for participation. I don't recall if there's a test at the end, because that has changed throughout the years, but I don't believe there is a pass-fail other than you participate and you get your certificate.
Okay, so if I participated in the program, presumably pay attention,
You
even
pay
I
your
could be
fee,
trained.
yes. You would get certified,
I
as
would,
trained.
even I could be certified.
I suppose so.
And a receptionist could be certified.
If she or he went through the same training, yes.
Okay, so if Patty Converse had gone through the HACCP training, she would be HACCP certified.
If she had gone through a certified course, again, recognized through the FDA, had done the requirements for her level of execution within the plan. Again, being responsible for the HACCP team is a different level than being on the HACCP team. And that's the variance between a few hours versus a 3 or 5 day course. Those are all variables, and I don't know if Patty Converse went through such a course.
What's the shortest course?
I believe a few hours, depending again, a person who's simply in a plant working with a HACCP team, not responsible for HACCP activities.
Okay, so what about, is it online?
I don't know the answer to the question. It has evolved. There are many, I should say there are a few, but there are a few providers of the course, but they are all certified through the FDA, and many go through the Illinois Institute of Technology, which took a really central role in providing the certification program for this training.
Okay, so My question is a really basic one. If I went home tonight, is there a way for me to get HACCP certified on a computer and that being qualified, or not qualified, you don't like that word? Is there a way to get HACCP certified on a computer?
As I said, I don't know the answer to the question, but I know that there are different time spans for training, depending on the level of execution and your level of responsibilities within an organization. They
I'm
vary
just
from
asking-
hours to days.
Sorry, I'm just asking the very simplest one. The very simplest HACCP training, a couple hours?
Again, it has to be a certified program, and I don't know of such a program.
What's the simplest HACCP program that you know?
Well, there's many different HACCP training programs that can be done online, but they are not certified, and you're not recognized as a certified HACCP individual, qualified individual is the terminology, by the FDA, if you take those simpler, as you say, courses.
I don't think you like my question. Let me ask a different one.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Appreciate it. So you're aware that Blaine Jones took a HACCP course as suggested by NSF, aren't you?
I don't know who suggested the course to him, but clearly it's a requirement of the audit, and they filled that requirement multiple years, and he took the course. I'm unaware of who made the recommendation to him.
I would move to strike everything other than I'm aware.
Overruled.
All right, let's look at the, let's move on and look at the 2019, February 21, 2019 audit. Let's start with summary by category. What's that all about, Dr. Adams-Hutt?
Those are the categories of the standard itself.
And overall score, what is that?
Overall score is the earned points for each category, summation of that, and then there is a percentage of 100% expressed.
Okay, and it looks like Real Water of this date got 95.5, is that correct?
As an overall score, they had deficiencies in some categories.
All right, let's look through the categories. So, category number 1, audit conducted with the following facilities personnel, and they list Blaine Jones. You see that? I'm sorry, we gotta scroll down. I apologize.
Okay. Yes,
And they looked at the different areas of the plant when they did this audit, correct?
they identified the audit areas of the facility that were audited, yes.
All right, let's go to number 3. And that's the description of what's being audited, right?
Well, that is a description of the facility overall. What was being audited is in the section you just took off the screen.
All right, I apologize. This is all general information, correct?
That's very general and not within the scope of the audit per se, but simply the facility itself.
All right. Let's go to question number, well, section 2, question 1. This is quality management, correct?
Yes,
You've seen this before, right?
yes,
Okay, I'm not trying to surprise you. This is something you're familiar with.
yes.
Okay. Question 2, specifications. Is there a current product specification documented for each product? Do you see that?
Yes,
And Real Water got 100% for that one. Product specifications are available for sizes sold to Costco. Do you see that?
yes, and that is reflective of the fact this is an audit being done specifically for Costco, a re-audit done specifically for Costco. And so they would only look at the sizes that Costco sold.
Okay. Now, are all these things in purple that we see on Exhibit 2011, these are the auditor's comments? If you know.
Yes, I wouldn't call it purple, but yes.
We'll go with your color. What color would you call it?
Magenta.
Magenta.
What exhibit? You said 2011.
It's Exhibit 211, I'm sorry. I just said
Oh,
2011. I misspoke.
211 is a bit.
And we're gonna call it magenta, we agree. All right. Question 9, looks like they did a mock recall. Yes?
Yes,
Question 11, looks like they're talking about compliance for caps. You see that?
Compliance for caps?
Bottle caps?
You might be on.
No, you're on a different, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at question 12. I
Oh,
have to switch between glasses and I'm not doing a very good job, I apologize. Question 12. Talking about, it looks like bottle caps there.
Yes, suggests to me that the auditor simply looked at the bottle caps for FDA compliance and did not go beyond that for ingredient contact surfaces.
All right, let's look at section 2, quality management, question number 19. Customer complaints, do you see that?
Yes,
And it said reviewed customer complaint files, SOP 2-06-020 dated 10/31/2014 was on file. You see that?
yes,
So that implies that there was a standard operating procedure with a date and that it was on file, correct?
that's what this is indicating in this 2019 audit. However, there are customer complaints that are reviewed that were dated 2014 and subsequent years that did not have follow-up, and I do not have any knowledge of the SOP 02-06-020, what it contains or what it says. That it exists is what the auditor recorded here.
Okay. So you could go find SOP 26020 if you wanted to, correct?
I have no knowledge.
You've not tried to find it.
I've not been presented information that contained that SOP.
You have been presented with this exhibit 211, this re-audit, and you have not undertaken any effort to find SOP 02-06-020. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Next section is HACCP. This was one of the areas being re-audited for the failing, correct?
Yes,
And the comments in magenta, HACCP team is established by position only, does not include personnel names or contact information. HACCP team meeting was done on 2/19/2019. You see that?
yes,
And then the next question, number 2, HACCP training was completed by Blaine Jones, 2/15/2019. You see that?
yes,
So in February of 2021, not 2021, February of, what is this, 2019? There was a HACCP trained representative of Will Water, correct?
he had conducted the formal HACCP training, which was a requirement of this audit. I don't have any information on what training course he conducted.
Well, he did a training suggested by NSF, didn't he?
As I stated earlier, I don't know.
Number 3, is the scope of HACCP plan identified? And the magenta answer is HACCP score was available for review. Please expand and provide more details. You see that?
Yes,
Questions 4 and 5, that's what Real Water failed in the prior December audit, correct?
I don't see the number.
You don't remember? We could go back to the other exhibit. I'm trying to move things along.
You're moving very quickly, and basically there was an indication there that there was still information that was being sought in item, I think, number 3. But you moved very quickly beyond that, so I didn't have a chance to respond. Please
All right, let's
expand and
focus
provide
on-
more details.
I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you. I totally apologize. It's very rude of me. I wanted to focus on questions 4 and 5 because the hour's getting late and we're going to try and finish today and let everybody go home. So I apologize for interrupting, but let's focus on questions 4 and 5. Do you recall on direct with Mr. Kemp that you had indicated that questions 4 and 5 in the December audit that preceded this, Real Water had failed?
I don't recall specifically these, but yes, they had failed in multiple areas, and I believe that these were 2 of them that were failures, yes.
Okay, and one of the ones that you seem to take particular interest in was that the product specifications were not available in that December audit. Do you recall that?
Yes, those product specifications are the Bible of the organization, so them not being available is a problem, yes.
And they were available in February of 2019, correct?
Yes, this is not stating what product specifications were available, but the auditor indicated that they were on file. he indicated compliance.
Okay. And for number 5, flow diagram is accurate. So again, he's indicating compliance.
He is, he's not stating whether or not all elements were included, but in his estimation at that time, he believed it was accurate.
All right, and number 7, says in magenta, hazard analysis for biological, chemical, physical hazards was completed, control measures are identified. Yes?
Yes,
Okay. Let's go to question 13. Magenta, the HACCP plan was validated on 2/15/2019. You see that?
it was a very busy day, yes.
And for question 14, it says magenta record keeping is in place. You see that?
Yes, it's not very specific, but yes, it's indicating compliance in the auditor's mind at that time.
Okay. The next section, section 4, GMP, that's good manufacturing practices and sanitation. Is that correct?
Correct.
And we can see, we don't need to do these one at a time, but we can see various entries where those were found to be acceptable. Do you agree?
The auditor found them acceptable, yes.
All right, you had indicated that one of your concerns was chemicals not being labeled. If we look at question number 14, do you see that the list of approved chemicals is under a standard operating procedure? Do you see that? I'm sorry, we don't have the answer on the big screen. This was a motion to grab it again for question
Actually, that doesn't include the
12. I'm sorry. I looked there and I looked here and I get messed up on the numbers. I apologize.
It doesn't indicate they're labeled. There's a list of all approved chemical detergents, sanitizers, and pesticides.
Okay, we don't need to pull that up. Let's go to employee practices, section 5. You see that first one there?
Yes,
Training, right? Training is important for employees.
yes.
Training records are available for review.
A very imprecise finding for an auditor in my experience, but yes, they're indicating that they did see records that were available for review. They weren't commenting how complete they were, but they said that they were available for review.
Have you looked at Patty Commerce's employee file?
I do not believe I have seen her employee file. This also does not state that the auditor looked at the training records, it just said they are available for review.
Do you have any reason to doubt the auditor was being truthful?
I don't doubt the auditor was truthful, I doubt that the auditor was being very complete and precise in his descriptions, which is not my experience. I see audits routinely, particularly re-audits, that are done with much more precision and detail than this.
Do you have reason to believe that NSF was not doing a good job in their audit?
I find these comments from the auditor to be light and insufficient, in my personal opinion. If I were reading this audit to understand whether or not the facility should have passed the audit, because I would want to know the detail. It's not just about a score for a quality professional, it's about the details that are written, and my personal experience, based on what I'm reading here, is the comments are quite incomplete.
So you don't like the job that Mr. Ishida did?
I would, if I was at NSF, I would have a very good conversation with this auditor upon completion of this audit, because they do review the audits, and they should be reviewing the audits, and I would find this to be very, very imprecise.
All right. One of the things that you talked to Mr. Kemp about on direct was the lack of gas chromatography. You recall that? From gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, GSMS, right?
The lack of testing for volatiles, yes,
Okay.
compounds.
Now, you're aware that Real Water did do GSMS testing, aren't you?
I've seen no results for gas chromatograph, mass spec testing from real water.
Okay. Your Honor, we would offer into evidence exhibit 2060.
So you
The
have some identifications with the
wet labs, test results taken on November 21, 2019.
bacteria test.
No. It's the GSM test.
Any objection?
Your Honor, I still don't have the document here.
Okay.
In a minute, Your Honor. Your Honor, I don't have an objection, but I do think there's an issue here.
2060 is admitted.
Let's start at the top, Mr. Zamora. We're almost done. We're running out of time. Do you know what lab is, Dr. Adams-Hutt?
I do not know them as wet lab. I don't recall Western Environmental Testing Lab. I'm not familiar with them now.
Okay. Do you know that Real Water sent its water out to tests with Silver State Analytical, wet lab? The testing was performed on certain periodic times.
I'm not aware of that, no. I've not seen the standard operating procedure to that effect or any other information.
Okay, well, we skipped that. But, were you aware there was a standard operating procedure to have the water tested weekly, quarterly, annually?
I know that there's a requirement, a regulatory requirement. I know that it was noted in South Nevada Health Department's audit or inspection results that the environmental testing was not done. And I believe that was also in multiple NSF audits.
And it was in Blaine Jones's testimony. You've seen Blaine Jones's testimony, haven't you?
Yes, I've seen both of them, yes.
And Blaine Jones testified as to quarterly, annual testing, all of the different tests that Real Water did on the water.
My understanding was that they focused on bacteriological testing, coliform testing, and used the incorrect testing that was designed for use with pools and spas rather than water, bottled water.
And you're aware that if we go to page 4, there's testing that's done for different chemicals. We see, and I'm not a science person, but certainly on page 4, we can see that GCMS was done.
They're looking for high trihalomethanes by gas chromatography, sorry. So they're looking at particular categories.
Yes, they are.
Again, they're not looking for unknowns, they're looking for specific trihalomethanes, contaminants in water. So this is a very specific targeted investigation, naming what they're looking for.
It
So
is.
it's not saying, I'm looking for unknowns,
That's
help
right.
me find.
That's right. They're testing for.
Going after categories of pesticides and other organic chemicals in water, which are contaminants
Yes,
and regulated by EPA.
and I agree. This is not a trick question. There's no test in here for hydrogen.
Or any other unknown.
Well, there's tests for all the heavy metals that the EPA requires. If we scroll down on the middle of page 3, we'll see all the trace metals that we're testing for: aluminum, barium, cadmium, chromium, copper, etc.
Hydrazine is not a trace metal.
Right, and this is what the EPA requires for drinking water, right?
Amongst the requirements, I'd have to go to EPA's requirements for everything that they test. These are methodologies that are required by EPA.
Okay. And so Real Water was doing the testing that the EPA required, correct?
I don't have full knowledge of that. I'd have to look at their complete line of testing, the frequency of testing, and look at the compounds that were being tested.
But you didn't do that, did you?
Because I had no information from Real Water that they were doing this testing.
The information's right here in front of us, we can see it, right?
I don't recall seeing this document.
Did you do a request for all testing that Real Water performed through council?
I responded to audit findings that indicated that such test results were not available, and I did no further investigation when the auditors are finding that there's testing not done, and the South Nevada Health Department is saying that the tests were not done.
So the answer to my question is no, you didn't request all the testing done by Real Water.
I didn't request additional information, but I found adequate information based on others who had requested that information previously.
You found adequate information to be critical of Real Water, right?
Sorry, say again?
You found adequate information to be critical of Real Water. That was your assignment.
There's an abundance of information available that I did review that made it clear that Real Water had multiple deficiencies regarding food safety.
That doesn't answer my question. Your assignment was to find what Real Water did wrong so you could tell that to the jury.
That is incorrect.
Okay? And your hourly rate for trial testimony, what is that?
It is, my current rate is higher, but this rate I'm doing for this case, because it's a legacy case, is $700 an hour.
Okay. And so what about for document review?
Same.
Okay. So for $700 an hour, you could have requested these documents like the quarterly annual tests that Real Water did if you wanted to.
If I had any indication that they existed, yes, I could have asked for them.
One moment, I'd like to refer to my colleague.
Sure.
We're at a place where we could probably include. One of the other questions I had was that you had indicated that Real Water involved a lot of complicated chemistry in response to Mr. Kemp's question. You still believe that?
I believe the production of alkaline water, particularly the method that they used, was a very complicated chemical process, yes.
And that somebody should be a chemist to analyze it?
I believe that there should be chemists involved in the oversight and monitoring of the production on a routine basis, yes.
And you're aware that Dr. Najam, plaintiff's lead expert, is not a chemist, correct?
I don't understand the relevance.
Well, you just said chemistry is very important. You understand Dr. Najam, the world's leading authority on hydrazine, as plaintiffs have said, is not a chemist. You understand that, correct?
It's two different chemistries. I'm talking about electrolysis of water, a chemical electrical current being passed through water, creating two different streams, one loaded with electrons and one deficient in electrons, and that's a very different issue than hydrazine, which is rocket fuel.
Thank you for answering my question. Thank you. Nothing further.
Let me read that. Yes, Your Honor. Shane, can we start with the inspection facility report? Now, Dr. Mr. Odou has suggested that the NSF audit of 2019 shows everything was great at the plant. What did the FDA and Southern Nevada Health District find when they inspected the plant?
They found multiple deficiencies.
Let's start with one.
Okay,
And what was the first one?
well, it's regulatory noncompliance. You do not have a written food safety plan. That is
And in the 2019 audit, they said that's not a problem, right? So
in the re-audit,
somehow-
yes.
Somehow NSF missed that in the re-audit. Okay, what's number two?
Your hazard analysis did not identify a known or reasonably foreseeable hazard that required a preventive control. The hazard analysis was not complete.
And again, back in the re-audit, they said, oh, no problem here, right?
That's what the auditor's finding was,
Okay,
yes.
and then three, what did the FDA and Southern Nevada Health District find?
You did not validate that your process controls are adequate to control the hazard.
And that was number 4 and 5 that Mr. Odou showed you in section 5.5, correct?
As I recall, yes.
So the FDA and Southern Nevada Health District said exactly what the 2018 audit said, correct?
Correct.
And next,
You did not have process control monitoring records, again, a requirement of the food safety plan.
okay, and again, the second NSF auditor said they had all kinds of records. But now the FDA and Southern Nevada Health District find they didn't, right?
Yes, the auditor
And 5, what's the 5th one?
You did not maintain records at the plant pertaining to physical inspection of equipment used for treatment of product water, including the type and date of physical inspections of equipment, conditions found, and performance and effectiveness of equipment.
And again, what the FDA and the Southern Nevada Health District found, that's inconsistent with the favorable audit Mr. Odou's.
It is inconsistent, yes.
Okay. Next.
You did not maintain records of cleaning and sanitizing solutions.
Okay. And then let's go to the very bottom one, because he spent a lot of time on these bacteria tests.
You did not take and analyze samples of bottled drinking water for bacteriological testing at least once a week.
Okay, and these are the findings of the FDA and the Southern Nevada Health District, correct?
That's correct.
And these are consistent with what you found, right?
That is correct.
These people aren't being paid $700 an hour, correct?
I don't know, but I don't think so.
Any reason to think that this isn't, this is accurate, this is what you found, right?
This is what I would expect to find based on my review of the
Okay,
audits.
so let's take a look at how Real Water got this sweetheart audit, okay? What I'll call sweetheart audit. Shane, can you pop up, remember Mr. Odou mentioned the email from Amy Jones about the 2018 audit that didn't show it to you?
That's correct.
You've seen it before?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I'd move to admit that Exhibit 239, please.
1 second, please.
Sure.
No objection.
239 is admitted.
All right. So this is the exact same day that the NSF auditor is on site, correct?
That is correct.
And so she comes back and she blames the auditor for being hostile, having a language barrier, thinks this auditor's out to get her, not a pleasant auditor. You've read this before, right?
Yes.
Have you ever seen a business write such a confrontational email about an NSF auditor?
Extendation calls for speculation.
Overruled.
In my experience, I've never seen such a document about any auditor. This is something that, not the way that we do business.
So the antagonistic and critical auditor, Ms. Sade, that did the December 2018 audit, she had the same findings as the FDA and the Southern Nevada Health District did, right?
She did.
Oh. Okay. And this wasn't the only email that Real Water sent out complaining about auditors, is it?
No.
Okay. And if I could have, I move to admit Exhibit 230, which is the Blaine Jones email.
1 moment.
Sure.
Sorry, it's just a very long document. No objection.
230 is admitted.
Do we have 230, Shane? Is that the complaint part, please? Next. Where was that? And another complaint to NSF about a previous audit, right?
Yes.
And so we have a pattern here, right? They get a bad audit, they complain, they get a new friendly sweetheart audit, they're happy. We get the second bad audit, they complain, they get the sweetheart audit, you know, they're happy. Then we get the FDA saying that the bad audits were all correct. That's basically the complaint. That's the pattern.
That is correct. And
Okay, now let me ask my question. Mr. Odou said his word was, quote, customary, unquote. He said it was customary for a bottle manufacturer or food manufacturer to complain about audits and get new auditors. Is that true?
that's not correct. And I hope I was clear in my answer, but perhaps not. It is not customary. It is absolutely not typical or, in my experience, what we do. We simply work to correct the problems and the next audit, make sure it is better and with a better result for a customer.
Okay. And let's go back to the GCMS versus what Mr. Odou showed you, the bacteria and metals
Yes.
testing. Okay. So again, can you explain to the jury what a non-targeted test is?
Again, based on the customer complaints that we've reviewed, you're looking at unknown gasoline substances that smell bad. Some are oily, some have fish smell, whatever. There's multiple complaints of similar nature. So you're looking for an unknown. So the tests that were done, we're looking for known categories of basically pesticides and other contaminants known to be in well water, which could show up in bottled water, which is why EPA requires that they be tested for. But these are known categories, not giving a sample to a laboratory and saying, I've got an unknown in here, please find out what it is. It's the same test, it's the same test equipment, but it's a different question you're asking for the investigator. And so you go about it in a different way. You're not just reporting what elutes out at certain times that you know these are the trihalomethanes. You're looking for something that is unknown. And that's what you're looking for, and then you want to quantify it, identify it. So it's just two different apples and oranges.
So let's pop that exhibit 260 back up that Mr. Odou loves so much.
Council, come approve.
Okay, can we have Mr. Odou? Which, oh, shame. It is 2060. Say 260, I meant 260. Okay, so this is the bacteria, pesticide, and metals test, correct?
Yes.
So Mr. Odou suggested that because they used the same type of machine, that this is somehow a non-targeted test. Is that correct?
It's targeted for what it's targeted for. Again, it's the right equipment for the right compounds, but they're named and they're understood what they're looking for, and based on EPA requirements, what the lab was asked to look for.
Okay, let's go down to the bottom of the chain and show what kind of things that they're testing. Trace metals, right?
Yes,
And some of these things are pesticides, I take it.
the metals are not pesticides. These are heavy metals that are known to be in soil and can get into groundwater.
Okay, and this is not a non-targeted test. This is a targeted test, right?
These are targeted tests. They're also not by GC mass spec methodology.
Okay.
But
Were any of these by GCMS?
these are mass spec. The trace metals below are on mass spec. I don't know if you go up under
Well,
GC.
please look, Shane.
Okay, IN, chromatography, general chemistry, that's not GC.
So this isn't even a GCMS, a full GCMS, is it?
No,
Let's go through that real quick. So GC, that's the gas part, right?
yes,
So basically they convert something they're testing into a gas.
it could start as a gas.
Okay. And then they take it and they put it in the mass spectrometer.
No.
Okay?
No.
Where am I wrong?
These are two different test methodologies, and as I stated, as I recall earlier in the day, they've taken two wonderful analytical tools and they put them together. We used to do this quite separately. Gas chromatography, and I've done lots of injections of gas chromatography. You can have a solid, usually you have to put it in solvent so you get something in the liquid, and you inject it into a portal. It volatilizes it at a very high temperature, and basically you look for the time it takes for that particular compound to come out of the tube, basically. And we know, because we use standards of other compounds that we're looking for, that we know what that compound is, because it comes out at exactly the same time. If you use all the same methodologies, that's gas chromatography. So that compound is being injected in, it volatilizes, and it comes out at an exact moment, exact second, on that chromatograph. It's called a chromatograph. Mass spectroscopy is a very different tool that's used largely for heavy metals. And so it basically burns things up. And I have to go back and review the exact chemistry, but it's burning up metals. It's designed for heavy metals, for iron and things like that. For blood work, you need to look at for iron. You're looking at things that are heavy metals. So I'm not surprised at all this. Again, the trace metals is not by GC. It shouldn't be. It should be by exactly the methodology that's used. Mass spec would be used for heavy metals.
Okay,
But-
well, let's get to the fundamental point.
Okay,
targeted versus non-targeted.
Right,
This is targeted testing.
targeted, because these are the categories that EPA requires be monitored. So they knew exactly what they're looking for. Very different than if you present a sample and say, I've got an unknown. And we did this, we've done this. I did it at Heinz, I did it at Campbell Soup. We did this routinely because we came up with things that we didn't know what they were. And so we had to figure it out. And if you don't know because you can't smell it or whatever, you test it. And you use a variety of different analytical tools, gas chromatography being one of them, to volatilize it and figure out if it's coming out at exactly the moment on that chromatograph that you know something is there. And then you're injecting standards to see what that substance is. But it's trial and error a lot, because you don't know what you're looking for, but you're looking for something you have an unknown. A very different methodology than what's been done here.
Okay, last two questions. The FDA did non-targeted testing to find the hydrogen, correct?
They did non-targeted because they didn't know what they were looking for, but they knew they were looking for something that wasn't standard.
And if we did that test, Mr. Odou popped up, we did it 1 million times, would we find hydrogen?
Not likely, as long as the request from the lab is exactly what it was. Look for these EPA classifications of compounds and tell us if they're there. That's the very different question than finding hydrazine.
And why would you want to do non-targeted testing as opposed to targeted testing?
Targeted is in compliance to, again, in this case, EPA specifications, EPA regulations. Non-targeted is if you have a problem and you're trying to find a root cause. You don't know what the answer is, and so you've got to throw many different tools at it to figure out what that unknown is. That's non-targeted. I don't know what it is, but I need you to figure it out.
Thank you, Dr.
Any requests?
Just very briefly. Dr. Adams-Hutt, what's the passing score for the NSF program?
The NSF does not have a score, pass or fail.
What is Costco?
Beyond the scope of the
What does Costco require?
So, this is beyond the scope of the.
No, I heard you, what did
I asked, what does Costco require for a passing score?
Same issue, I didn't even talk about
Yeah,
that.
so you could ask some different questions.
I am going to ask about the NSFs. Could we, so Mr. Kemp implied that Real Water would change auditors when they didn't get a score they liked. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Mr. Zamora, could we pull up Exhibit 203? Who's the auditor in Exhibit 203?
Timothy Parrish.
And what's the date?
It is December 5th, 2014.
Can we pull up Exhibit 204, please? Who's the auditor?
Christopher Cohen,
What's the date?
October 28th, 2015.
A year later, they have a different auditor, correct?
As I stated, that is routine, yes.
It's routine.
To have a different auditor, not to request one.
So they have, so yearly having a different auditor is routine?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Reread that.
I know you're right.
Any questions from any jurors? Come on up.
Sorry, Aaron.
No, that's so ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for the questions. These were not going to give, and you may recall, some direction on that at the beginning. Don't take anything either way, whether a question from a juror is given or not. Treat everything the same. So we are going to break from the day. You can step down.
Thank you.
Thank you. So tomorrow, come back at 11 a.m. So 11 a.m. during this recess, you're admonished not to talk or converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this trial. Do not read, watch, or listen to any report of or commentary on the trial or any person connected with this trial by any means of information, including without limitation to social media, text, newspapers, television, internet, radio. Do not visit the scene of any events mentioned during the trial. Do not undertake any investigation, do not do any posted communications on any social networking sites, do not do any independent research, including internet searches, do not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with the trial until the case finds to be due. See you back tomorrow, 11 a.m.
Thank you guys for the jury.
Let's see, so when we did that 2060, is 2060 the one that went over the different testing?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so 2060 is admitted.
It's 2020, that was the one that I had, there was an objection to, but I didn't have to put it on.
2020. Okay, oh. 2020. You all know which 20.
Yeah, it was a standard operating procedure, it's a minor issue.
Again, I would object to the additional standard operating procedures and to explain a little more fully. There's, I believe, 22 different sections here. They were not produced in one document. We got them in litigation, and I pulled bits and pieces together, and we tried to get a whole set on it. And I don't even think we have a whole set as we're sitting today, but no witness came and said, this is the standard operating procedure. So what we gleaned is that sometime in 2014, they had an FDA consultant do this manual for them. And I will concede that we did use some of the standard operating procedures in the depositions. Specifically, I think section 14 on customer complaints were used in some of the depositions and maybe one or two of the others. But no one's ever said this is the complete list. And so that's why I think it would be inappropriate to admit it.
Any response?
It's a minor point, Your Honor. I was trying to lay some foundation for the witness so she would know what I was going to be talking about afterwards.
So,
Really, whatever the court wants to do.
so what, and I, and some part of me hates to do this, the other part of me does it because I think it's the way to go. So I'm, not as familiar with you all, as you all are with your documents. So if he kind of wants to admit 2020, give me something brief in writing, and it may not, then, and plaintiff can respond to the trial brief. As I sit here, I'm just not comfortable admitting it. Certainly, she did talk about it briefly. So there's that. And so 2020 not admitted yet.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
No, thank you. What do you before? We were holding off on any, I forget, plaintiffs had another issue, right?
If we had an issue regarding plaintiff questioning, and I think we can pick that up tomorrow morning. We're going to talk about it now because you're not doing another plaintiff today.
Oh.
Well, not today, I mean, you go to the jury goes.
Well, yeah.
Tomorrow, Your Honor, it just depends on the court's preference. We can do it tomorrow, we can.
Who's gonna be on first?
We had planned on calling Mr. and Mrs. Pagano at the end of the day today because we didn't think Dr. Hutt would take this long, so we need to go recalibrate.
Okay.
We may put them on tomorrow, but we may recalibrate. But what had been planned for tomorrow is Patty Converse, which I think is going to be by deposition. I think there are maybe one or two points to the contention on that. Two, Mr. Marlowe, I think is coming at 1, if I'm not mistaken. He's a live witness. I expect him to come because he always comes.
What was his last name?
Marlowe, M-A-R,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
M-A-R-L-O-W-E. And then we're going to try to do Chris Wren and Emily Wren tomorrow. The Tagano thing, that might be a little bit.
It's still possible, if not likely, that we get
we just have Mr. and Mrs. Tagano tomorrow with the other planned witnesses, and we get them all done in the same day. If not, Thursday, because of scheduling and experts, was gonna be light anyway, so, we're still right on track. It's just a Wednesday or Thursday question.
And really, the reason why I asked if I need to, rule on something, my criminal calendar tomorrow isn't the heaviest, but it's not as light, so, now we plan on 10:45, here tomorrow, and, if you need to give me input, and I rule on anything. Anything else?
No, you're.
Oh, yeah, you're right, I forgot. Shante Williams was set for tomorrow too.
We'll likely start with one of the plans.
Yeah, like you said, trial fluid, recalibrate. Sometimes people go fast, sometimes not so fast. Anything from the defense?
No, this is-
All right, thank you.